A racist Karen thought she could abuse her powers to harass a black man. Little did she know, she was making the biggest mistake of her life. Before we get started, if you like stories where racists get what they deserve, subscribe to our channel. The wrought iron gates of Bellevue Estates swung open with a whisper, revealing a labyrinth of manicured lawns and homes with names like Magnolia Manor and Willowbrook Retreat. The neighborhood prided itself on exclusivity. Rules governed everything from mailbox hues to the volume of wind chimes. At 6 Maple Crest Lane, a moving truck idled. Derrick Cole, a black man in a faded hoodie, unloaded boxes labeled "Fragile" books. His presence drew stares. Not because he was extraordinary, his build was average, his demeanor quiet, but because he was different. The kind of different that made neighbors clutch purses and mutter about property values. Across the street, Patricia Whitmore, HOA president and self-appointed guardian of Bellevue's standards, adjusted her silk scarf and frowned. To her, Derrick's pickup truck and unassuming sweatshirt screamed "renter," a stain on her pristine block. She marched over, clipboard in hand, lips already curling into a smirk. "Welcome to Bellevue," she said, tone saccharine but eyes cold. "I trust you've read the entire handbook? We're very particular here." Derrick nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. "Thank you, ma'am. I'll be sure to follow the rules." Rules. The word hung in the air, sharp as a blade. Patricia lingered, eyeing his lawn, a blank canvas she'd soon paint with finesse. Derrick said nothing. He simply unpacked, his movements deliberate, his silence a quiet storm. The next morning, Patricia stormed onto Derrick's lawn, her pearl-studded clipboard trembling with indignation. "Your mailbox," she snapped, pointing at the standard beige unit installed by the previous owner. HOA guidelines specify gloss white. Section 4, subsection B. Derrick, pruning a rosebush, glanced up. "I'll repaint it today, ma'am." Patricia smirked, eyes raking over his sweatpants. "A man of your ambitions must be thrilled with this starter home." She air-quoted starter, as if the word tasted bitter. Derrick set down his shears. "Ambitions." He smiled faintly, a flicker of something unreadable in his gaze. "I find comfort in simplicity, Mrs. Whitmore." Neighbors peered through curtains as Patricia huffed, circling his yard like a vulture. "And that music," she added, nodding at his open garage, where a jazz playlist hummed. "Noise ordinance is 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Only approved genres." "I'll adjust the volume," Derrick said, voice steady. Patricia lingered, unsatisfied. "See that you do." She strutted off, heels clicking, a conqueror in her own mind. Derrick watched her go, then returned to his roses, humming a tune louder than before. By Wednesday, Patricia's inspections grew relentless. She stalked Derrick's yard at dawn, circling his tomato plants like a hawk. "These vines," she declared, "violate Section 9, no unsanctioned vegetation." Her laugh was sharp. Honestly, garden gnomes are more tasteful. Neighbors winced. Mr. Alvarez, retired and sympathetic, muttered, "Leave the kid alone," but Patricia ignored him. She arrived Thursday with a camera crew from the Bellevue Beacon, filming Derrick's eyesore yard for a community standards segment. "We must protect our sanctuary," she told the reporter, gesturing at Derrick's modest grill. "Some people just don't grasp refinement." Derrick's jaw tightened as the crew zoomed in on his welcome mat, a gift from his niece, embroidered with "Home is Love." He said nothing, but his hands gripped his gardening gloves until his knuckles whitened. That evening, Patricia left a typed list taped to his door. Final warning. Alleged violations included unauthorized shrubbery height and suspicious loitering, him reading on his porch. The last line seethed, "Comply, or face legal action." Derrick stared at the note, then at his reflection in the window. For a heartbeat, his calm cracked, a flicker of rage, of decades of "you don't belong here" echoing in her words. But he simply folded the paper, tucked it into his pocket, and watered his tomatoes. Friday at dawn, Patricia returned with a formal inspection crew, 3 neighbors clutching clipboards, all avoiding eye contact. She halted before Derrick's lawn, now flawless, and sneered. Overgrown grass, she announced, pointing at blades mere millimeters, too tall per section 12. And this abomination. Her heel crushed a single tomato, juice staining her ivory pump. Maybe you're used to slumming it, she hissed, voice trembling with faux pity. But here we have standards. The crew shifted, uneasy. Derrick froze, shovel in hand. Decades of "you don't belong," the security guards who'd trailed him in stores, the promotions denied, the whispers, flooded his veins. His grip tightened on the shovel, knuckles white. But then, silence. He turned slowly, eyes locking with Patricia's. For the first time, she flinched. Derrick straightened, shovel still in hand. The morning sun caught the glint of his wedding band, a quiet reminder of the life he'd built despite people like her. "Mrs. Whitmore," he began, voice low but carrying, "you've cited Section 12, subsection 3 about grass height. But you missed the amendment ratified last month. The one you voted against." He paused, letting the words sink in. The same amendment that bans discriminatory enforcement. Patricia's smirk wavered. I don't know what You don't." Derrick stepped forward, posture relaxed but eyes razor-sharp. "Then let's discuss Section 21. The one about hostile environment violations." He gestured to the camera crew. Filming a man's yard at dawn? Harassment. Crushing his property? Vandalism. All documented. He tapped his phone, screen glowing with timestamps and recordings. The inspection crew exchanged uneasy glances. Mr. Alvarez emerged from his porch, nodding. "He's right, Patricia. The man knows the rules better than you." Patricia's face flushed crimson. "This is ridiculous. You're just a homeowner?" Derrick interrupted, softer now. "Or a threat? Because the rules apply to all of us, ma'am. Even you." Silence fell. Somewhere, a wind chime tinkled, a sound Patricia once policed. The crew lowered their cameras. For the first time, Bellevue Estates held its breath. The silence shattered as two black SUVs screeched to a halt at the curb. FBI agents in tactical gear spilled out, badges glinting. Patricia's eyes widened as they surrounded her, one barking, "Stand down, ma'am." Derrick stepped forward, pulling a sleek badge from his pocket. The sun caught the gold emblem. Director D. Cole. "Agent Harris," he said, nodding to the lead agent. "Seize her files. All of them." Patricia staggered back, her clipboard clattering to the ground. "Why, you're him," she whispered, voice cracking. The Bellevue Beacon crew gaped, cameras now trained on her. Her face paled, then flushed, ugly, mottled red. "This is a mistake. I'm just enforcing standards." Derrick's tone was ice. "Let's review your violations, Mrs. Whitmore. Discriminatory fines for black families. Blocking wheelchair ramps as eyesores." He gestured to a trembling neighbor. "Mrs. Patel, you were fined for a prayer flag. Remember." The agents hauled boxes from Patricia's garage, files labeled "Complaints," "Race," "Trouble Tenants," and worse. A photo of Derrick's house, circled in red, fell at her feet. "You see, Patricia," Derrick said, leaning in, "I didn't move here. I was sent. Your HOA's been flagged for civil rights violations since 2018. He nodded to Agent Harris. "Arrest her." Neighbors erupted. Gasps, cheers, a few horrified whimpers. Mr. Alvarez clapped slowly, a grim smile spreading. Patricia crumpled as cuffs clicked, her screams muffled by the agents. "You can't do this. I'm the president." "Not anymore." Derrick pocketed his badge, turning to the crowd. "Anyone else confused about the rules?" The street fell silent, the only sound Patricia's sobs as she was shoved into the SUV. Somewhere, a neighbor switched on Derrick's jazz playlist again, louder this time. Derrick stood at the center of the cul-de-sac, the morning sun framing him like a spotlight. "Racism isn't a difference of opinion," he said, voice steady. "It's a crime. You don't need a badge to recognize humanity." Patricia, handcuffed in the SUV, thrashed against the window. "You think this changes anything?" You're still. Silence, ma'am. Agent Harris slammed the car door, cutting her off. The engine roared as the vehicle sped away, leaving a cloud of dust and whispers. Patricia faced federal civil rights violations, fined $50,000, and permanently barred from the HOA. The HOA's discriminatory bylaws were shredded. Mrs. Patel's prayer flag fluttered proudly the next morning. Patricia's sobs echoed through the open SUV window, a raw, guttural sound. As neighbors watched, some grimly satisfied, others tearful. Mr. Alvarez spat on her abandoned clipboard. Derrick turned to the crowd. This isn't about vengeance. It's about accountability. Your home isn't a weapon to exclude. It's a promise of safety. He retrieved the welcome mat Patricia had mocked, "Home is love," and placed it back on his porch. A neighbor, a young black single mother, stepped forward. "Thank you," she whispered. "My son, he plays outside now." 6 months later, Bellevue Estates buzzed with life. Children of all hues raced past Derrick's tomato vines, now a community garden. The HOA board, now half black and brown faces, hosted a block party where jazz blared openly. Derrick mentored teens in his garage, converting it into a policy workshop. Mrs. Patel's prayer flags fluttered beside a new sign, "Bellevue, Community over Conformity." A white teen, helping Derrick repaint the last beige mailbox, grinned. Never knew a garden could change everything. Derrick chuckled, handing him a trowel. Gardens, and people, grow where they're nurtured. Have you ever been in a situation where someone tried to bully you or take advantage of you? We would love to hear your stories and how you handled it. Share your experiences in the comments below. If you enjoyed this and want more content on Black inspiring stories channel like this, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching, and remember, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's choosing to act despite it.